Hello and welcome to this video on Tableau for finance data. So it's just an example I came across recently and I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at what can be done. So let me just bring up the data set first of all. So this is obviously this is mock data, but this is the type of structure that I came across on the data set. And I've seen this numerous times in kind of finance departments and things like that. You've got a list of dimensions or characteristics about the data, and they can be vast between different departments or products or that kind of stuff. But mainly the financial data is laid out going across the page, except it's not just actual data, it might be actuals and budgets, and then again there might be a few budget figures, there might be a final and a revised budget throughout the year. So often you want to be able to compare or build trends or different things. And the problem is with the data laid out like this, Tableau isn't great at reading this. So let's have a look at opening this in Tableau. So I'm going to connect to this data file. It's a text file in my downloads. Okay, so this is the exact same data here. I can see if I scroll across, I have actuals, the ACT, and my budget figures here. Okay, so I'm going to go to a sheet, and this can be a typical problem that people come across is they connect Tableau to their data set, and then they want to build what should be fairly straightforward, but because of the layout of the data, it makes it a little bit hard. So there's two things I want to build here. So firstly is I want to compare month by month my actual to my budget. Okay, so we'll look across department. I'll take my January actual and my January budget. Okay, so far not too bad. I can make this the entire view. Maybe I turn on the labels. So I start to get a view of this across the board. I want to go one step further and I want to find out what the variance is. So what's the variance between one and the other? So I will create a calculated field for this and we can call it variance. But I can't just say to Tableau, take the actual minus the budget. I have to do this month by month. So I have to say, what's the variance of January? So we'll take that minus that to give me the variance. And I could add that to my chart. So we can now see the variance across the board. And I can even use that as a color. Okay, so I can get an idea where we're up or down or those kind of things. Okay, power of Tableau. The problem is if I want to rebuild this for February, I have to do another sheet, another variance calculation, because February is in two different columns. So this doesn't become very dynamic. It doesn't become a great way to build. So I end up with 12 sheets, 12 different months. And then I come to my next problem is I want to trend this data. So I'd like some sort of line chart that shows me our actual spend over the year compared to the budget or month by month comparison, that kind of stuff. And that now becomes really difficult to do within Tableau because of the way the data is structured. So how do we fix this? Well, rather than go back to the original Excel, because that might be the format of the data, that might make it easy for input and for people to keep the records of it. So I don't want to change the underlying data here, but really what I do want, if we just take an example field, I'll just show you what I want this data to eventually look like. So really what I'd like here is a date field. Then I'd like the actual figure, and then I'd like the budget figure. Okay, and we can continue that on for the multiple rows. I'm just going to take the first row as an example. So what I want here is there's my actual and there's my budget. Okay, and the date here, I'm going to make it an actual date. So we'll call it the 1st of 2019. That's how my data should be laid out to make this usable in Tableau. That's not feasible to do that line by line by line by line. It's not dynamic. It defeats the purpose of having these kind of tools in place. So for this, I'm going to jump to Tableau Prep. So I can build something in Tableau Prep that's going to allow me clean this data and put it in the format that I need. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Let's connect to the file. My mock data, and I'm just going to take you through the steps that I would do. And if you haven't seen other Tableau Prep videos, I'd recommend you check them out. This isn't a basic tutorial of Tableau Prep, but it will show you how you can build a step-by-step workflow. That means I don't have to do this work again. So as the underlying Excel file gets updated, I can just run the workflow, the step-by-step guide, and it will transform the data for me. Okay, so let's have a go at this. I'm just going to add what's called a clean step in prep so we can examine the data. So you can see this is the same file, ID, department, country, and then we've got some months of actual and budget running across. Okay, and my aim is to get the data to look more like this. So I want 6 columns across with the actual and the budget side by side. Okay, so I need to what's called pivot the data. So I want to turn in here, you can see I want columns to rows. So I want to take all those actual figures and turn it into rows. So I want one column called actual and one column called budget. So how would we do this? So over here, I'm going to search for any column that has ACT or actual in it. I'm going to select and drag all of those. And a big advantage, so I can do this particular step in desktop, but a big advantage of Tableau Prep is I can do what's called a double pivot. So I don't just want the actuals to change into one single row, I want the budget figures to as well. So I can do 2 pivots here. So let's go back over and look for my fields that are budget. And now let's add them to the data. And again, I'm going to add a clean step so it's nice and easy to see. You could do this in less steps, but this makes it nice and clean. So if we look at the bottom part here, which is our data view, I've got my budget figures. We've got this column called pivot names, which is something that Tableau automatically creates. And this here is going to become my date field. So you can see it has the month and the year. So we're going to use this to create a date field. I have my actual figures and I have my existing columns, the ID, the department, and the country that it came from. Okay, so let's create a calculated field. I wanted to create a date field. You might say I could leave it like this because I can see the dates in here, but again, Tableau works better with dates if you have an actual date field, even if you've forced it. So April 19th actual, it doesn't matter what the day here is, whether it's the last day of the month or the first day of the month, but Tableau will work better if there's a date field, a real date field. So let's create that. Okay, so I'm going to do this in a few steps. Again, you could do it in less, but to keep this nice and simple, I'm going to create a day field, and I'm just going to put 01 in quotes. So this is my text. Okay, so I'm going to put everything to the first day of the month. Next, I want to split this field, so I need whatever the month is and whatever the year is. So let's do a custom split. You decide what you want to split on, so mine is an underscore, and I want the first 2 fields. So that's going to give me the month and the year. And again, I'm making this dynamic so that I can use this even if we roll into 2020 or if we have to do a 2018 file or anything like that, this same concept will work. So we split that, and Tableau gives us our 2 new fields. We can see here we've got month and we've got the year. So let's tidy up this. I'm going to remove the original so we're not confused, and let's rename this field to be the year and this field to be the month. Okay, so we're getting closer. I do want to update this field, so I'm going to click on it and create a calculated field. And the great thing about prep is if I give the field name the same column, it'll override what's there. So I don't need to create a new column to do this. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 20 and I'm add it to whatever the year is. Okay, so that will be 2017 or 2018, in this case 2019. So again, I can click apply and we should see the field update. Perfect. So we're nearly there now. We've got our day, which we've set everything to first day of the month. We have a month name and we have a year. So let's just put this together into a date field. And we can do this by saying it's the day plus slash plus the month field plus a slash plus the year field. Our calculation is valid. And again, we can click save here and we should see we've got what look like dates. And now we have our date field. So I'm going to go and remove the month, the year, and the day so we're not confused. So in a couple of steps, and these are repeatable, these are not something I would have to do again. All I would have to do is run the data and I would get this. So let's add a final step here. Let's add an output. I'm going to save this to a file and I'll save it as a CSV file for now. So let's just browse. We can again put it in our downloads and we'll call it mock output. So we know what we're getting. As I said, CSV file. It should ingest the data, run through these steps and output a CSV file. So that took 1 second. So let's jump back to Tableau now. This is what my data looked like, but now let's go and grab this new data set. So mock output is what I'm going to connect to, and let's add a new sheet. So now my data looks entirely different. Okay, again, I'm going to flick back to the old way here, so you can see all of the different measures were different months, where now I'm looking at something much, much cleaner. So let's do the same kind of calculations that I was trying to do in the first instance. We take department, we can now take the actual, the budget. I'm not restricted to months here at the moment, so what I can do is I can again create my calculated field, and this time it's going to be just one calculation. So variance, and I can take the actual minus the budget. I can click OK, and again we can add that to our column here. Let's just fill the view and we can add the labels. And now what I can do is just simply add the date field. Sorry, the date. Sorry, I need to just make sure it is a date. So let's add the date field here as a month. And I can select any particular month. And now with just one click of a button, somebody can update the month that they are looking at. So in the previous example, I would have had to build 12 sheets to achieve this same effect, where here it's one sheet with just a simple filter and somebody can click through the months. So that's the big advantage of being able to change or swap your data around. One other thing that we couldn't do in the other data set was look at a trend. So now I want to look at the trend of our data. We'll look at it per month. And we can look at the actual versus the budget. And again, I might be able to add the variance report so I can see where we're down, where we're up. I could turn that into a bar chart, and I could do all of the nice things that would be involved in building Tableau, but you can see how much easier now it's become to build both a trend line and a single view chart that allows somebody to flick through the months. So if you do have data in a format like this with loads of columns going across and you're trying to compare, I would really recommend that you take a look at Tableau Prep. It comes as part of the Creator package with Tableau, and just see how you'd build a workflow, a repeatable workflow. That means every month you can just come in here, press play, it'll update your data set, it'll repeat all those steps. So all the work goes into building this workflow the first time, but after that you've got a nice clean data set perfectly ready for what Tableau is good at. Okay, I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. Thank you very much.